So one of the things about living out in the rural area, and you have outsheds and outbuildings, barns, and so forth, is you tend to have a lot of mice and rats tend to crawl up into the walls and up into the rafters and into the attic. So it's always a challenge to keep them under control. Um, and sometimes they cause damage. And right now I'm experiencing that out in the tool shed. I've been going out there and turning the lights on, and the breaker's been blown. So it's kind of started getting worse and worse. And the other day, I was in the tool shed, and the I heard this click, and then I could even smell something. So then, of course, I go back to the breaker. I trip it back on, and I run back out into the shed, and I listen for it again to trip, and sure enough, I heard in the corner of the tool shed this pop, and I kind of did it a couple more times to try and locate where this was coming from, and it was actually coming from the corner of the tool shed, down at the bottom where the Romex, the wiring, comes up through the floor. So I'll show you what I found and show you my process of how I'm going to fix it. It was here, that was behind this cabinet that you see right here, which wasn't being used. And uh, a few months ago, it was actually a mouse that had tried to slide in between the junction box and the drywall, and he ended up electrocuting himself and was sticking out of the socket there. So anyway, so I immediately thought that this must be the issue, because there's some kind of inside the wall a traveling mouse highway. But I disconnected the switch and tripped the breaker again, and still it popped. And then wait a minute, I saw a spark come out from the bottom. So I had cut the drywall open to see what was going on, and thinking that I would see the Romex in there all chewed up. But as you can see from here, the Romex is in great condition. There's no mice that I can tell living in that particular area. But then I heard a pop, and then I ended up cutting that corner down, and there was no Romex in there whatsoever. And then I looked a little bit closer, and actually it was over here on this side. And if you look, here's the Romex coming up through the ground, and the rats or mice, trying to make that hole a little bit bigger, started chewing on the Romex and shorted it out. So that's where it was sparking from. Unfortunately, there's not enough slack in the Romex for me to repair that, so I have to somehow pull this up or down and replace this section of wiring. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, and I'll show you my process. So the section on the shed that the wiring is damaged is right about there. It's about 14 inches from the edge, which puts it right in that area. So I'm going to have to remove that bottom. I guess that's really a floor joist on the end here, and see so I can get in there and see what we can do. But I think the first thing I'm gonna do is, ideally, I would like to take a Sawzall and come in here and just cut this one section out. It appears, because the nail holes are all along through here, that the joists are running this way through the shed. So I'm not sure which side of that joist I want to cut on, but I don't want to cut through the wiring the rest of the way, so I'm going to dig down a little bit, and I have a little camera that I'm going to snake down through and see if I can see where the wiring is at, so that I don't cut through it with my saw blade. You're not helping. Take the puppy somewhere else. Hey, hey, hey! So one of the nice things that I have that comes in handy every once in a while is this little camera. It's this one's called a Rigid Sea Snake, and it's basically, it has a little lens here where you can see what's going on when you take this flexible end, and you can route it up through a hole, and it's got a camera on the end, and you can see what's going on. So let's give this a try and see if we can see where that wiring's at. It's got a little camera there. Not sure if you can see it with the glare. So take it, hook it up under there. I can see the Romex. Oh my God! It's buried right in the ground. You're never supposed to bury Romex in the ground. Well, the good thing is they didn't run the Romex directly into the ground. They do have it running through a PVC conduit. So, question is, where does it go to? And can I find where the other end is? Because if I can, yeah, you helping, Loki? Are you helping? So, as you can see, the Romex does come up and then go up into the house, and it goes into this PVC conduit here. I'm not sure. I could put a junction box in down here, cut it up high, pull the wire down. That's probably the best bet. But of course, now I'm curious to where does this conduit run? So in the future, if I want to run another line across, I know where it's at. So I'll take a look and see. I find it ironic how I am working on reorganizing my tool shed so that I can work on projects more efficiently. But even before I can get to finishing my tool shed, I have projects come up that I just can't go around. And of course, in order for me to work in the tool shed and use the tools, I need power. And the the first thing to go out on me is my power, because of rats chewing the main power line to the tool shed. So basically, we'll have to make do. All right, so here's where the wire is chewed up. So the power is out, and if it's not, I will I'll find out in a second. But I know it is because the breaker was out. So I've cut that. Take this insulation up. What I can do is put a junction box up a little higher. What I'll do is I'll cut and put a junction box a little bit higher. I have plenty of wiring that's here, and I'll put a junction box on the underside because I can't pull that wire up any farther. So there'll be two junction boxes, one here and another one there, and a longer wire in between the two. Out through the hole. And holy cow, there's where the rats had chewed through the wire, causing a short. And causing it to blow the breaker. See, hot in the ground wire was coming in contact with, well, the hot wire was coming in contact with either the white wire or the ground wire, which would cause it to go. So what we'll do is cut all this bad away here. So this is how much slack I have to work with. I'm not sure where I'm going to put the junction box. I don't really want it on the outside for the weather to hit. Although I could put a weatherproof box on there, and I don't really want to cut a hole through this. That would be a pain in the ass. And this wire won't reach up into the upper area. So I gotta figure out what I'm going to do.
One of the things about living out in the rural area and trying to do things yourself and be more self-sufficient is collecting things. Now, I don't mean like hoarding, like on those hoarding shows or people collecting trash and garbage in their house. I'm talking about collecting things that may be useful, that you may need in the future. I've being a general contractor for 6 years, doing home remodels, I tended to gather up a bunch of things, and I've been trying to organize them in proper containers and in ways for me to be able to find them when I need them. And this here is a prime example of over here I got a situation where I need some type of junction box, and I go to my storage container and I pull out a box full of junction boxes. The same with wiring and even tools. Some things you go, oh, will I? That's the $1 million question. Will I ever need to use this again? Because I've thrown away, probably when I made the move up to Washington, I probably threw away 3/4 of the stuff that I had, and thinking, well, someday, I may need this. I'm sure I'm not the only one that says that, but here's a prime opportunity of a prime example of, yes, I will maybe need this someday, and here I have an option. So anyway, so what I'm looking for is some kind of junction box that I can. I feel like, going back over here, I feel that I don't really have an option. I don't want to have a junction box sitting down in the dirt. So I think my option is to cut a notch in the 2x, what is that, a 2x10? I don't think it's a 2x12. Cutting a notch in there and putting a junction box. And I think my wire is just barely long enough to do that. It's going to be tight, but I think it'll work. And code-wise, the junction box is always supposed to be accessible. But also code-wise, I don't believe a junction box is supposed to be, right at dirt level. So this junction box being this low to the dirt, I don't think would pass code. Of course, I don't think having Romex coming right up out of the conduit like it is here and coming up through the dirt is code either. But I not in a situation for me to rebuild everything that was done when I bought this place. Our main house is even worse. Code-wise, it's a mess. So anyway, back to this. I have several options here. I just need something simple. Here's an outdoor box that's rated. It has these inserts here that you can screw in, or they're not here, but you can screw inserts into this to pinch the Romex and hold it into place. It doesn't have any flanges on it, so this would be like I would probably make this a press fit. Cut a hole and sink this in there, and then silicone around it and put a waterproof plate over top of it. So that's an option. I don't want to use these. Are really for indoors. Here's an option down here. This is a shallow plate. This is where for when you don't have a whole lot of room in a wall, or on the other side of the wall is another plate, and you don't have you're trying to share the space. So this is an option. I could cut this out, mount it flush, and possibly make this work. So I think this is what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to try this, and we'll see how it goes. Probably the best bet is right about here. How high can I go? I'll try and go up here. Oh, batteries. Cow, don't fail me now, DeWalt. Battery's been charged. The wood is really wet. I should have brought my power drill out. All right. Barely enough water. Should be good. That hole big. Theoretically, I'll have to take this back out when I do the upper one. And you're supposed to get the sleeve of the Romex into the J-box at least a half an inch. And I don't, it's caught. There. So that does work. Barely, man. It's just, I don't know if you can see it. Got the sleeve of the Romex is coming into the J-box. Just about a half an inch. So the problem, the thing is I'm always, complain about the building inspectors and the cities and all of that, because most of the time they're useless, because they don't take any responsibility if something does go wrong. But if this shed was built to code, I wouldn't be doing this right now, because this Romex wouldn't be exposed underneath the house for rats and animals to chew up. It should have never been like that. I don't know. I could I could continue to jerry rig it and slip a piece of PVC tubing over top of that to help protect it somewhat, but you know what, by the time I fill this dirt back in, it's going to be back underground anyway, so really what difference does it what difference does it make at this point in time? Bitch. Alright, so anyway, we'll move forward, pull that back out, and get the splice wire that I'm going to go from this junction box to the junction box inside. Alright, so we're getting ready to run the splice wire. It's going to go from the junction box that we just saw on the outside to here. What I have here is a piece of Romex. You'll notice it's a different color than the one that we took out. They do two different colors of Romex, and my belief is, and once again, I'm not 100% sure of really anything that I say. So here I am telling other people what I think they should do. But anyway, my belief is the two different colors, there's a yellow and a white, is usually, at least what I've done, when you're running wiring for a house or a new room addition, you usually run yellow for all the lighting and the white for all the junction boxes and plugs throughout the house. So that way, when you're it helps make it a little easier for you to find which wires, when you go up into the attic, oh, this is a yellow wire, so this must be running to a light. It just helps identify things a little bit better. That's my thought on it, and I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, somebody please make a comment that what you believe is the case. But that's what I believe. The one thing that you got to watch out for when you are using the Romex is it does come in gauges, which are the different thicknesses of the copper. The higher the number, the thinner the copper, the less amperage that you should be running through the wire. In this case, the wire that's running from the main house to the tool shed here is 12 gauge wire, which is a standard for electrical outlets. If I were to have done this all over again, I would have put a much heavier gauge wire running from the house to here, and put a breaker box right here on the shed, because I plan on running saws and compressors, and if it's just a 12 gauge, is basically a 20 amp circuit. You can cheat it up a little bit, but not recommended. So I am a little bit underpowered here in the tool shed at the present time, which means that when I'm running power tools, I got to make sure to turn off the heater if I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to run the compressor, make sure basically I'm not running too many things at once. If I don't run too many things at once, then I'm safe. But like I said, if I were to do it over again, I would have run a little heavier gauge wire, a 10 gauge or something, or probably more like 2 circuits or 3 circuits. You can never have enough circuits, really. And put the lighting should all be on one circuit, and the power should be on another, and large heavier items should be on a third circuit. Anyway, so enough babbling. So basically, if I can get the camera still, I'm basically going to take this wire, I'm just going to poke it down through the hole, and that's it. I'll go back to the outside and work on the other end. I have plenty of excess wire up here, so when I come back into here and start putting the J-box in, I should be good to go. Wire I just ran through. Since I have plenty of wire on this end, and I think code-wise you're supposed to have 6 inches of wire in your junction box, and that may differ from different states of what that is. Even different cities have different codes. It's hard to keep up. So, with that in mind, I wonder if I do have to take this out. Screwdriver. I hate to pull that back out again. But I don't think I have a choice. I gotta pop this back out. Run this up through. Through there. That through. Put some screws in there. I should probably do that now. Always want to get the ground wire done first, because you really want that pushed all the way in the back so it doesn't interfere with your other wires. The other thing I like to use is use ground wire crimps. You just slide them on both of these wires and crimp them together, and you never have to worry about them coming off. Only problem with those is when you do want to take them off to add something else in, they are a bitch. Ideally, I want to rotate these in so they twist around each other. Less chance of them coming undone. The wires are wrapped around. Tuck it in the back. Next to be the hot wire. This is the black wire. tucked in there. As neat as you can be in getting these tucked in here, the happier they'll be. And the happier you'll be if you ever need to get to them again. Just like to have things kind of neat. Alright, this one here, don't have a lot of room. I need those to be the same size, so I'm going to adjust it a little bit. There. 3 nice little wires tucked in there. Ground wire is not touching anything. All twisted. Just going to come in and seal around this gap here a little bit. Then I'll get an outdoor waterproof cover and cover over top of that. And should be good to go here. So now we got to go inside. Alright, so here we are back inside. This was the wire that I just ran, that we just saw, that's out to the junction box on the outside of the house. I have plenty of wire here. Here's the wire that we, sorry I'm jumping around here, that we cut off that was damaged. So what I want to do is, because I took out this big chunk of drywall, and of course I saved the drywall because it's a perfect fit because I cut it right out of that spot, so I'm going to want to put that right back in. What I'm planning on using is a remodel junction box. It has these flanges on it that when you cut your hole, and you tighten the screw up, these open up and then basically lock behind the drywall and hold it into place. Since I'm going to have to put blocking behind here to attach this piece of drywall back again, I don't really want to put this junction box on a piece of drywall patch, because of course this is a junction box, so there won't be anything ever plugged into this. It'll just be a plate cover, so that if I ever need to get in here again in the future, there's an access panel for it. But still, this whole section goes behind this metal cabinet, so you're never going to see it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the junction box up here a little bit higher, because that way it's in some nice solid drywall. I have plenty of wire to reach up to that area, and the wire that I'm pulling comes from up there also. So as long as I don't when I cut the opening in here, I don't cut through and cut this wire that's hidden behind the wall, I should be fine. So let's see if I can set up the camera here and go through this process.